pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go. Welcome to the September 22nd Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support? All approve? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the agenda is as written. We have the approval of the minutes, the regular meeting minutes of August 25th, 2015. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. We have now appeal number 15007, which is Mr. and Mrs. Cromery or Cromery. Cromery, okay, thank you. Of 22186 Forest Drive. They have requested a public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals for variance to construct a sunroom addition on the existing patio that does not meet the rear yard setback on lot 294-296, Gulfview Estates No. 1 subdivision as recorded in Wayne County records, Township of Grosse Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan, also known as 22186 Forest Drive. The way we proceed with the meeting is that we're going to have Brian Borden come up and give us an overview of the appeal, and then after he gives the overview, you will then have the opportunity to come up and make your case to us. Okay? Okay, Brian.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. All right, mic's on. We're working. Okay, request before you this evening. As you noted, properties at 22186 Forest Drive, west side of Forest Drive between Island and Lakewood. It is this guy right in here. And the request is for an 8-foot 7-inch rear yard setback variance to construct a screened-in porch atop what is currently an at-grade patio in the rear yard of the property. Zoning for the site is R1B. The entire neighborhood is zoned R1B, and pertinent ordinance section in terms of the reason for the variance is 3.5, which is the schedule of regulations for single-family residential districts. Here's a look at the plan that was submitted. So the first thing I want to point out is the directions are actually incorrect. That's noted in my review letter. It doesn't really affect anything, but certainly is something worth pointing out in case anybody was confused as to how a property was on the north side of the road. So north is actually to the right, so the rear addition is actually to the west, and then this would be Forest Drive across the front, where it says south is actually east, just to make sure we're all clear. So here's the proposed screened-in porch off the rear yard. It's 20 by 20, or off the rear of the residence, 20 by 20, and on the plan shows with a 31-foot 5-inch setback to the rear lot line. This is the detail sheet that was included with the submittal. Nothing really overly elaborate. There's some construction details to this. Gives you an indication of the height. It is only a single story. It is not a significantly tall nor large addition for that matter. But I did want to put this in here in case we needed to reference this sheet for any reason. So in terms of our ordinance requirements, as I mentioned already, 3.5 requires a 40-foot rear yard setback for principal buildings in the R1B district. This proposal would result in a 31-foot 5-inch rear yard setback for the screened-in porch. And I did want to point out that because the addition is atop an existing at-grade patio, I'm getting looks from the board, but can I, Mr. Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
They'll have to, I mean, there'll be demolition.
Well, The point is that there's a 20 by 20 concrete patio there now.
21 by 20.
And my initial point for even bringing that up is that the patio as it exists is compliant. So the fact that the patio currently encroaches into the rear yard setback is not an issue under your zoning ordinance. So thanks for the clarification. That does help. It's not necessarily being built atop, but it's being built in lieu of or in place of the concrete patio. What I wanted to point out was that Section 19.6 does allow up to a 10-foot encroachment into rear yard setbacks for uncovered, unenclosed, essentially at-grade terraces is how your ordinance refers to it. Same thing as a concrete patio, essentially. Terrace is just a nicer word to use, I guess. So, and then 23.5B provides us with our review standards. I will come back to this if we need to. I know we had some question last month, and if we want to come back to each of these items, we can certainly do so. So, quick summary, and then I'm almost done here. So, applicant does seek only a single variance for a 31-foot 5-inch rear yard setback, where 40-foot is the minimum required. I did make some notes in my review letter that I believe the existing residence does comply with all of the other requirements of your ordinance, but I did have to nitpick and point out that the drawing submitted was not to scale, or at least was not to the scale that was indicated, so I couldn't confirm front or north side yard setbacks, although based on the two dimensions we did have, those items are pretty clearly met, assuming this is relatively accurate. There's also some information that is missing on this particular drawing. Your ordinance does lay out all of the requirements for plan submittal before ZBA. Really, all we got in this case was a box with a house. We didn't get any of the surrounding structures. We really didn't get any other property information in terms of any vegetation. I did pull the aerial photo, which I kind of glossed over, and anyone who's driven through here, my guess is that they named it Forest Drive for a reason. There's a lot of vegetation in this neighborhood in general, having driven by, and you can see from the aerial photos, so certainly there's a lot of vegetation there. That may or may not influence or impact your decision here tonight, but I did want to point that out. So again, there's some items that are missing that we typically would like to see or prefer to see, but the board does have discretion as to whether or not to waive some of that information. So if you feel that there's some additional items that would influence your decision, I certainly think tonight it would be pertinent or prudent to bring those up to the petitioner since they're here. Moving on, our opinion, based on what we've seen, strict compliance will not prevent expansion of this residence. There's room to both sides. There's also room for a smaller addition off of the rear yard. In essence, I don't believe that the ordinance is preventing or precluding the petitioner from adding on to their home, which is something that, again, most property owners typically have the ability to do so long as it's within the confines of the ordinance. With respect to the property itself, it does exceed both the area and width requirements for the district. In fact, it greatly exceeds the area requirements for R1B. This is actually a really large R1B lot, and I would suspect the others in this neighborhood are as well. I believe most of them were similarly sized. That being said, it's a large lot. It's a rectangular lot. Nothing jumps out at me as far as an extraordinary circumstance. When I look at the property conditions, again, based on the submittal, I don't see much to base a variance on. We're supposed to be looking for an unusual or exceptional circumstance of a property. Based on what I have, personally, my opinion, I don't see it. So moving on, in the absence of an unusual condition, extraordinary circumstance, or demonstration that compliance is unnecessarily burdensome in some way to the petitioner, I don't see that a variance would be necessary for fairness. I don't believe that the substantial justice test is met in this particular case, and I don't believe that a variance is necessary to promote a property right that is possessed by others. As I mentioned earlier, we do oftentimes run into issues where property owners cannot expand their residence without a variance, but that's typically due to a unique circumstance of their property. This particular case, I would suggest, again, and I know it's not what they want, but I would suggest that there's certainly room to the sides, there's room elsewhere off the rear, and there may be some reasons why, and I would hope the petitioner is prepared to address those tonight. To me, another resolution in the absence of a variance is just simply a smaller addition. Again, it's not exactly what they want. I understand that. But in the absence of something to base a variance on, I think that some of those alternatives probably need to be explored. Closing point is just trying to wrap up many of the other review standards. As far as safety hazard, as far as neighborhood character, nuisance-like conditions, impact on property values, traffic flow, etc., I don't really believe, given the conditions of the property in the neighborhood, it doesn't appear to me as though any of those items will likely be issues. I don't think, given the landscaping, the vegetation that's in this area, I don't really think it's going to be harmful to any of the surrounding properties. But again, that's only part of the test here. The real test is tied to the idea of a difficulty or a burden, fairness to the owner, an exceptional or extraordinary circumstance of the property, and those are the key items that, personally, I just don't see with this submittal. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian.
Here, let me put.
Okay, we'd like to get the applicants up here, and if you would come up, whoever's going to make the presentation, and give your name and address.
My name is Dave Adamczyk. I'm the owner of DA Home Improvements. Mrs. Cromry is contracted with DA Home Improvements to hopefully build the proposed sunroom. I have to apologize. I just got the request and background information that Mr. Borden has some of the setbacks and some other requirements. I would have liked to provide those today, and unfortunately I just seen this for the first time 10 minutes ago. So I also had a third party that I contracted to do the plot plan, and I thought this would be sufficient, but apparently that's not the case either. So I apologize. I wish I would have had a little bit more time to, I would have gotten those things for you. I believe Mrs. Cromry would like to have the sunroom placed where we have proposed because of the layout of the interior of the home and the patio that's there. Also, some of the different layout of the house. It just would be nice to have that sunroom on, the place where it's proposed. Other than that, I don't have a presentation to give you. I've got a letter from some of the neighbors that Mrs. Cromret provided me today that said that they wouldn't have a problem with the sunroom as we proposed it. And I can hand these to you if you like.
Yeah, do we have, you want to give that to Lori?
Sure.
And then she can give it to us, yeah.
I guess if you have any questions, I would,
Okay, yeah, we'll entertain questions from the board.
I guess based on what Brian has said, my first question is whether or not a smaller structure has been considered so that they don't have to have a variance.
It was, and that's why we went through the variance. So I requested a building permit, and they would like to go forward with the variance.
What is the reason that a smaller structure couldn't be used?
I guess I would have to let you answer that.
My name's Julie Cromry. My husband and Dave have been doing a lot of the talking together, and we just really wanted it to fill the same area so we can fit in our furniture that we have out there, a sofa and a table, chairs. And it's also that area because there's two doors that go out to the patio right now, so we wouldn't want to have to put in new doors anywhere else.
So if I understand, you're saying you want it this size to accommodate the furniture, basically?
Well, it would be nice to have that.
No, I mean, I really would just,
Another option was to make it half the size, and we just didn't want that. It just wouldn't be, we want to be able to sit out there and have a table. We have a table of 4 or 6 that we could sit out there, and it just wouldn't be feasible. Be that small.
is there no other place it can be built around the property? I mean, it's because it looks pretty tight when you drive, when you look at the property, it looks pretty tight to take it that far back because everything is on a rectangle and sort of squeezed in there.
What's squeezed in?
I mean, from behind, it looks, when you go to the side and look down, it looks like it narrows the space pretty significantly.
Well, we want to be able to sit out there. You know, we're not really using it right now because the trees, everything falls under the patio, and every time we go out there, we have to clean everything off. So that right there is a good spot. And to the right side, the west, which is actually the north side, those are bedrooms over there. So we don't want to put it off the bedroom.
Okay, I can understand that, but it just, okay.
So we're going to have doors.
Any
on
other
either
questions
side,
there?
too.
We're trying to clarify where these are.
Gary, you have a question?
Yeah, just. We good? I'm sorry. I believe your concern is the 2 existing exit doors from your house to what is now a patio, which will not be there anymore.
The doors will be there.
I mean, the doors, but the patio goes away.
Right, but we'll still have access to get into the screened-in
Yeah, right.
porch.
And so if you maintain the width, you still have access, correct?
If you maintain the width, you would have access to whatever room we put on there.
Yeah.
But a
And-
10 by 10 room is not what they would like. It's hard to entertain.
But aren't we just talking about the depth, Brian? Yeah. So if you shorten that by approximately 1 foot, I'll defer a 1.5 feet, is that what you said?
Well, the encroachment is roughly 8.5 feet.
So if you take a 1.5 feet off, you've still got your width, you've still got your access.
I think we have to reduce the depth by 8.5 feet.
Correct.
Not just a 1.5 feet. It's
You have to
8.5 feet.
Correct.
8.5 feet.
Correct.
Yeah, what did I say?
You keep saying a foot and a half.
I lied.
So the room would only be 20 wide by 12
Well,
foot
it's
deep.
21, really, according to your drawing. Foundation plan says 21. Yeah, you do, and that's what I used. Correct?
The foundation and the concrete may be
Yeah.
21. The room is going to be 20 by 20, hopefully.
Well,
But
I
a
mean,
20 by 12 would, I don't, I'm right, but it's not big enough to entertain what the
Right.
purpose that they're trying to do.
But for purposes of measuring the setback with the 20 by 20 building structure with the foundation, it's 21 feet. Is that right? I mean, when you actually get the finished, done with the construction, if you measured where you're supposed to measure to the property line, what will you get?
Yeah, I see 20 by 20 on the drawing here.
Mr. Chair, if you look at the foundation plan on the other drawing, I'm sorry I don't have a clicker, I can't switch to it right now. The width is 21. The width isn't necessarily why we're here tonight.
That's what I'm talking about,
The depth. The depth on the foundation
Depth
plan
is still- is
shows us
20
20
feet,
foot,
1.5 inches.
1.5 inches, correct.
Plus or
Yep.
minus.
Okay. I have another question. Yeah, plus I'm just looking at the plot plan, and as you mentioned, it's kind of, it's not to scale. I mean, it's just really not what I'd consider an appropriate document for us to review. That's pretty much it.
I understand
You
that.
can't. I look at it and I say nothing's there that I can relate to. So, right from the start, that's not a good thing. So you should have looked at this before it was submitted. Okay, I have another question on when you submitted the application, you did not mark off why this appeal is submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals for hearing because, and you didn't mark off why. Why do you want this? What makes it special?
Well, I think the area that we want done, there's already the pavers there. So to take out just, part of it, I don't know, it just made more sense to just go all the way back. So I'm sorry that we omitted that part of it.
So the unusual conditions, say that over again. What is the unusual conditions that you're presenting to us?
That it's a little bit further out. I don't know. I wasn't prepared to talk, to be honest with you.
That's important. It's important to tell us what that is.
I think the fact that it's just not as far from the neighbors, or it's a little bit closer to the neighbors. We have so much foliage back there, you can't even see our backyard. I don't want to disrespect you or the neighbors or anything by saying that, but I feel like, I don't know.
The lot size is extremely large for the home that's sitting on there.
Thank you, yeah.
I did not see this meeting going this way, and I've been through numerous ones of these, and when I've turned in different documents, even through the Township of Groseal, I get back a request to exactly what I received 10 minutes ago. I get that so I can prepare and give you the information to help you make your decision. And that just happened 10 minutes ago. And I would have done that. I would have made sure that every inch was on here. This was all done because of the setback in the rear yard. If I would have provided pictures, I just didn't think the 8 feet was a big deal with the size of this lot. And all I can do is apologize to you. I would have had overhead pictures, side pictures. If you actually went to the lot and the site and what we're asking to do here, I don't think it's out of the norm. I understand that the setback, I'm asking for an extra 8.5 feet, but the neighbors, all the surrounding neighbors, don't have any problem with that. So
Charlie Campo is our neighbor to the right, so he's fine with it. He gave a verbal agreement. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to get his signature. He's been busy, and we haven't run into each other. But
Okay.
Another thing I want to say, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
The part it's going to be covered with a roof, and it's going to be an extension of the roof, the existing roof. It's not going to be different color or anything. It's going to match perfectly. So
There's a gable there right now.
there is a gable. There's an extension
Yes.
about
You're
6
just gonna
feet. We're just
extend
going
that
to
out.
add
and
to
you
that.
can't see that. It's going to be pretty. It's not going to be an ugly screened-in porch.
The partial fence.
Yes, yeah.
There's a partial fence at the rear and then a lattice or something. Right, Bob, is that what you call it? But then there's also a permanent shed that you don't show in any of your drawings. That I don't think impacts anything, does it, Brian? I mean, the setbacks, I measured the setbacks today and they look all right.
Yeah, not as it relates to the request before you,
Right,
certainly.
just as it relates to the drawing.
Correct.
I agree.
Okay, another question. Have you considered an option, an alternate?
Unfortunately, my husband's not here tonight. He was out of town, so I think we wouldn't have called you here, or we wouldn't be here right now if we couldn't go ahead with this size structure. I don't know if it's because of the roof. It has to be. Doesn't.
So, I mean, what you've given us, the 20 by 20, that's pretty much it. That's what you want. And that's what
Yes.
you're willing to stand by on the vote.
Looking for a hardship, why should the township, and what is unique situation?
I would think just this particular lot with this size home and asking for a 20 by 20 sunroom or an addition with the layout of their existing home to where it flows and they can entertain on that existing patio. That's why we went for the variance and asking for the extra or the additional 8.5 feet.
But where's the hardship? I don't see the hardship. There are no circumstances, there are no unusual circumstances or hardship here,
I don't understand why there has to be a hardship.
because that's what the zoning variance is for.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just wanted another, in addition to the room, we only have a living room. We don't have a family room, so it's another place to go to. We could set a TV out there. It's, another room.
Is that going to have heat? You're going to have just.
Oh, no, I mean, it's not going to be 4 seasons, but from May,
So
June, whenever.
it's
it gets
another
warm.
room in summertime or spring,
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
The reason I asked you if you had an alternate is because, I'm being hard pressed to identify the hardship as the board is talking about here. And it might be well worth you considering an option. I know if you strictly met the ordinance, you'd be talking about a 20 by 11 and a half room, 20 by 11 and a half
11 and a half.
deep.
Could be 11 by 50.
They got lots of property. Yeah.
I believe it's because of the layout of the rest of the home and the way that portion of the house, the existing house, bumps out towards the rear.
There's also a beautiful garden around the red boxed-in area that,
The landscaping accepts this proposal.
exactly.
And then there's some patio out, in the rear, and there's some stamp patio that's in between, if you will, between the two bump outs going towards the rear. It just, it fits this house. That's, I guess, the best.
It extends off the dining room, so there is a dining room there to go out through the 2 doors.
Just wouldn't think with the approval of all the neighbors and nobody having any objections with the neighbors, they should be allowed to do what they want with their home on that lot. And that's, why we're proposing the variance.
Building committee.
It has to fall within zoning guidelines.
That's why we're hearing it.
Right.
Yeah,
Unless there's an unusual or hardship, and we are trying to get that out of you. You have to have something that differentiates your property or your situation from all the others. Otherwise, how would we deny any other people the building the same as you'd want, the variance? Just because they want it doesn't do it.
And the size of their lot and the size of their home,
No.
and the way it's constructed.
No, it's a setback requirement. There's got to be something unusual or some hardship.
It kind of looks like that and from my opinion, the approval is not going to be given. I'm not saying that I'm going to answer for the board itself, but there maybe there's an option that you can consider, because I think you ought to consider another option for us.
Anywhere on your property. Where that you have
Careful.
that standard, with our approval, you go back to the department.
Well, what would happen if we did choose to go smaller, not go back as deep? Would we have to come in front of you and present again?
20 by 11 and a half. Now, I'm saying 11 and a half. Maybe we can give a little on the 11 and a half, but for construction purposes, Brian, that.
Yeah, if they design an addition that meets the 40-foot rear yard setback, they don't need a variance.
Right.
That's the issue.
But even if they go 1 inch over, they need the variance.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's that's where we are. Have you ever laid it out with a 11 and a half foot deep?
Yes.
You have. You did do
Yeah,
that.
we would like the size that we're talking about, so.
Could you not have the 11 and a half and still have your patio attached to it so that you can still get the use of your furniture and still be sheltered and still entertain? I mean, I would certainly consider that.
In either direction to expand.
I think it would look odd if you went either way to the right or left as you're exiting the house to the rear. It would look odd because of the way the house is configured. It would stick past the garage, and that would look odd looking at a screen, especially from the road. The way this is, nobody can see it, not even the neighbors, because of the green belts and the trees that are in the way. So that's why
Would it, without expanding it to the sides, could you not add, as Brian called, a terrace from the back, which would give you as much room as you wanted to entertain, but keep you within the variance for your structure?
I think the goal was to have it screened in so that you
Right.
could relax.
Well,
and
then
not
we need to see
carry
a
away with
hardship.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah, see, that's where we're at. You can see the drift of where we're going, and you're going to have to compromise, or else let us vote on the 20 by 20. That's where we are.
Mr. Chair, can they, well, that was just going to be my question. Can they bring back the accurate plans that are necessary to show a fully, a good package to us, and then maybe a proposal of some sort of compromise so that we can then take a look at it without having to say no at this point? Can they do that?
That's a question that, if you people are dead set on 20 by 20, then that has no value. So we'd have to vote on
No,
the 20 by 20.
that's why I'm saying, with a compromise on their part.
Well, they'd have to compromise, and I don't know if they're willing to compromise.
I just don't want to make a decision without my husband here, and he's in a...
Well, that was the reason for the tabling, so that you can...
If I may, if you want a variance of anything over 11 and a half feet, what the board's trying to say is address the practical difficulties, substantial compliance, and extraordinary circumstances as to why you feel that anything over 11 and a half feet, whether it be a 12 and a half foot, you only want to put 1 foot more, why you meet those requirements, not just because you want to, and bring back the presentation to us, whether it's 1 foot or a 20 foot, and let us address those substantial practical difficulties and substantial justice and extraordinary circumstances is why that should be granted, and that's what we're asking.
Yeah. Or you could just say it's 11 and a half, and you don't have to come before us. You don't have to go through the agony.
But whether you're stuck at 20 or whether you'll compromise and do 15, anything over an 11 and a half, we're asking that the substantial difficulties, practical difficulties, and extraordinary circumstances be addressed as to why it should be granted or a variance should be given. Address it, rather than flat out address it tonight.
It's your decision. So tabling it, you could talk with your husband, and then we can get back to that.
Okay. I would like to do that, please.
So, okay, are you willing to do that?
To talk with my husband about it?
Yes, and we'll table it?
Yes.
Yes, can you please table it for...
Okay, so can we have a motion to table?
One thing first, and when they come back, we would have the accurate plans? And
Have accurate plan, yes.
Okay.
Right down to the inch.
Good.
And direction, too. I don't know if you might want to, have you read
I apologize.
all this stuff?
I chair suite, too.
Okay, so it is appropriate to delay, because the questions we're addressing are in there. You can read them, and you'll see what we're after. You may have practical difficulties.
And you'll have a copy of Brian's comments in that packet then?
They may not have looked at that or that, and, it's
I mean,
appropriate.
is it appropriate for her to have your comments?
Absolutely, yeah. Mr. Chair, if I could jump in, just for the petitioner, just a bit of guidance for them.
Okay.
I would encourage you to look at sections 23.4 of the zoning ordinance. That will identify the information that's required with your submittal, so that you can update your plans to give the board something a little more accurate, a little more precise, and a little more detailed than the drawing that we have. And then I would encourage you to look at 23.5, which then lays out the criteria that we've been discussing tonight. And that's really what the board will ultimately make their decision upon, is your demonstration that those criteria are met. So I would encourage you to really look through both of those sections and be prepared to provide an updated plan and be prepared to discuss the review criteria at the next meeting.
So Brian, is it okay for her to have that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So that's what you want to
Oh,
look at.
absolutely.
I mean, that's what.
Given time.
Okay, so you agree to the tabling, and we'll have a motion here to table the 15-007. So do we have a
I have a motion. Okay.
support?
Support.
Discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the 15-007 is tabled. We will reschedule. Lori, you're going to have to reschedule this so that we can get it on the docket. Okay. Okay, so
Well,
Okay.
To be here. Supposed to be, yeah. If the decision was made, I will be here. Right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
okay, do we have any other business to conduct? Hearing none of that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.
Hey, Brian, are we off the...